Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to talk about population attributes. Now, what do you mean by population? Population is the group of organisms of the same species that is living in a particular area at a given time. So the members of this population, they share or compete for the same resources, and they also reproduce naturally. That means they interbreed among themselves. Now, although this interbreeding implies only for this sexual reproduction, a group of organisms resulting from a asexual reproduction is also considered as a population for ecological studies. Now, what do you mean by attributes? Attributes means it is some characteristics or points which are associated with the population and not with the individuals alone. So we cannot consider these characteristics for a single individual, but we have to consider characteristics of a whole population as a whole. And now we will discuss about some of the attributes of population. So the first one is birth rate. Or natality. Birth rate, it refers to the population production of new organisms in a population. Example, in a pond there were 20 lotus last year, and this year 8 new lotus has been added. So what's the total now? The total is 28 lotus plants. So in this case, how can we calculate this birth rate? So we can calculate the birth rate as 8 new members and divided by 20 equal to 0.4 offsprings. 0.4 offsprings per lotus per year. So this is how we calculate the birth rate of an organism in a particular habitat. So next point is death rate or mortality. Death rate or mortality simply means the decrease in the population by death of an individual. It is expressed as a number of individuals dying over a time period. An example, in a laboratory, out of 40 fruit flies, suppose 4 individuals have died. So here the death rate can be calculated as 4 by 40 is equal to 0.1 these fruit flies per fruit fly per week. Suppose in a week, if 4 individuals die, that means we have to take as per week. So this is how we calculate the death rate. And in the third attribute of population is sex ratio. So the sex ratio means the percentage of male or female in a population. So how many male is there and how many female is there in the population, that is called sex ratio. And now the fourth one is age distribution. Now a population contains individuals of different age group, such as pre-reproductive age group, reproductive age group, and post-reproductive age group. So in pre-reproductive age group, like in case of humans, it can be from 0 to 18 or simply below 18 years. and reproductive age group can be above 18 to around say 45, and post below 45 years. Post reproductive age, the organisms may be, in case of humans, can be above 45 years. So those who are exceeding more than 45 years, we are supposed to be grouped in a post-reproductive age group. Here we are talking about the female only, because female are the ones who are able to reproduce. So depending upon which age group is more prevalent in a population, we can determine whether the population is expanding, stable, or declining. Suppose this is the size of a pre-reproductive age group. So if the number of pre-reproductive age group is more than the reproductive and post-reproductive age group, then the population here will be what? Expanding. Why? Because when these pre-reproductive age group individuals become matured and then they have the ability to reproduce, then they will be able to reproduce more offsprings. So in such cases, the population will be expanding. Now, in the second case, this is the pre-reproductive age group and reproductive and post. So if the size of this pre-reproductive and reproductive age group is same, then the population growth here will be stable only. So this is, here the population is stable. And in the third case, suppose this is the pre-reproductive age group, and if the reproductive and post-reproductive age group is more than the pre-reproductive, then in this case the population growth will be declining. Why? Because this pre-reproductive age group individuals are less than the reproductive and the post-reproductive. So we can see here, all these are called age pyramids. So depending upon which age group is more, we can decide whether the population is expanding, stable, or declining. Now, the fifth attribute of population is population density. Population density is expressed as the total number of individuals in a given area or volume at a given time. So this population density, it is not necessary to calculate or measure by numbers only. Why? Because in some cases it is meaningless or difficult to determine. Suppose in a given area, in a particular area, there's 200 Parthenium plants. Say 200 Parthenium plants and 1 banyan tree. So this banyan tree is very big. It has a huge canopy, and the roots of this banyan tree spreads about 200 to 300 meters underground. So this banyan tree is a very huge tree, and these Parthenium plants are not as big as the banyan tree. It is very small. So here in this case, if we measure the population density by numbers, then it will be meaningless. It will be like ignoring the enormous role of this banyan tree. So in such cases, we can measure the population density by percent cover or biomass. So we have to measure population density by percent cover or biomass. So there is no need to measure the absolute densities. We can just take the relative densities. Example, if we want to calculate the number of fishes in a lake, then we can measure the population density by taking the number of fishes caught per trap. And even the tiger census is also often based on the pup marks and fecal pellets, their footprints or their excreta. So these are some of the attributes of population. Now next topic is population growth. The size of a population is not a static parameter. It keeps on changing with time and with some of the factors like abiotic factors as well as biotic factors. These factors can be this food availability, presence of predators, and disease, weather, and other environmental factors. So whatever may be the factors, the population density changes because of the four basic processes. Number one, natality, and two is mortality, three, and the fourth one is emigration. So natality means number of birds in a population at given time. And mortality means number of deaths in a population at given time. Immigration means coming of organisms from elsewhere into the habitat. And emigration means organisms leaving the habitat and going elsewhere. So these are the four processes which affects the population density. And in addition to these factors, there are various other factors like duration of the light, temperature, rainfall, winds, soil, etc. And other biotic factors like this producer-consumer relationship, predators-prey relationship, and host and parasitic relationship. So all these factors are responsible for the changes of this population density. So suppose this is a population density. Now this population density is often designated by capital letter N. Now if the organisms have was born in a habitat, that is natality, that means addition of new organisms to the habitat, so plus, that means organisms are added in this population. Now the other one is immigration. Immigration means the coming of organisms from elsewhere to the habitat. So this would also mean plus, because some organisms are being added to this population. Now when organisms from this population dies, that is mortality, then some of the organisms are lost. So we put a minus sign here. And emigration. Emigration means organisms leaving from that very habitat and going somewhere else. So that will also mean the organisms lost. So this is the population density. Like which is affected by natality, immigration, mortality, and emigration. Therefore, population growth is equal to population growth is equal to organisms added minus organisms lost. So, depending on the organisms added or lost, the population can either be increasing or decreasing, or like if the number of organisms lost or is equal to the number of organisms added, then that population is neither increasing nor decreasing. So that in that population there is zero growth. Now let us drive an equation to find out the population growth. Suppose the initial population is designated by at time t is designated by n t, and population after time interval. Time interval can be a week, a month, or a year. So the population after a time interval can be designated by n t plus 1. So to find out this population growth, n t plus 1 is equal to initial population plus population growth. So in the next step, we know that initial population is n t. So plus population growth. We have also discussed that population growth is equal to organisms added and minus organisms lost. So here we will write organisms added minus organisms lost. So in the next step, same thing, plus organisms added. Like when are these organisms added in a population? We know that it is during birth and immigration. Why? Because immigration means like the coming of organisms to the habitat from elsewhere. Minus organisms lost. When are these organisms lost? It is during the death and emigration. So this is how we can find out the population growth. So where B is equal to natality, I is equal to immigration, D mortality, and E is emigration. So this is how we can find out the population growth. Hope you all understood.